than most boys.
True also that he could minuet a stately dance, and gavotte, a peasant dance, as if he had been born a king.
I can fiddle, I can flirt, I can fence. What he liked to do best from sunup to sundown was watch birds. The happiest memories are the little ones like father near our home in France.
On these walks, Papa Audubon would talk to birds. Their colors so beautiful, their flight so graceful, and most wonderful of all, their disappearance. And their return in the spring so faithful.
What now? Daunting was He walked through the Pennsylvania woods alone. His father was 4,000 miles away.
Only 6 months before his father had put him on a ship.
You.
The ship carried John James so how well he had lived on the barrels of a creek.
I sent my only son there to learn English, to learn business, to learn how to make money in America. But mostly, I sent him away so that he would not have to fight in Napoleon's war.
Who will ever see my papa again?
It was April in Pennsylvania, and slashes of snow still lay in deep hollows. John James splashed across the icy creek.
He scrambled up the bank and approached the limestone cave, wondering what he would find today.
Will be the empty nest. Last 5 days, or will there be?
Beep, 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 beep.
The PA flycatchers have returned!
A peewee is a type of flycatcher, a family of birds that scans for insects by perch and flies out to catch insects on the web.
The female bird flew out of the cave like an arrow shot from a bow. The male bird, larger and darker, beat his wings above John James' head and snapped his beak.
Clack, clack, clack. John James ran out of the cave and crouched next to the creek.
He watched as the birds dipped in swords, knocking out mayflies in flight. These that built the nest last year. But where do they spend the winter? Will they return next spring?
John James ran home through the woods. He burst into the farmhouse kitchen, his words tumbling out in French.
Madame Thomas, il do uso.
Mrs. Thomas was the housekeeper Papa Audubon had hired to take care of Mill Grove, his American farmhouse.
She pointed a long wooden spoon.
Off with those muddy shoes!
John James quickly took them off and placed them by a fire to dry.
Birds, I see birds. 2 and cave, beautiful.
From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you close your eyes at night, you only think of birds. So strange for a boy your age.
Mrs. Thomas was fond of this energetic French boy, and yet she had to admit he was something of a crackpot.
Master Audubon, thou wouldn't do well to do God's work by tending the farm more and chasing after bird glass.
But John James halfway to his room pretended not to hear. He went straight to his room. Every shelf, every tabletop, every spare inch of floor was covered with nests and eggs and tree branches and pebbles and lichen and feathers.
The walls were covered with pencil and crayon drawings, all signed JJA.
Every year on his birthday, John James took down these drawings, a year's worth of work, and burned them in the fireplace. At sundown, they're done. Work.
John James went to his bookcase and took down all the natural history books that were gifts from his father.
Where do these small birds go in the winter? Do they return to the same nest each spring?
The scientists who wrote these books did not agree. Each one gave a different answer. 2,000 years before, the Greek philosopher Aristotle had given the answers to these questions.
Every fall, great flocks of cranes fly south and return in the spring, but small birds do not migrate. Small birds hibernate underwater in hollow logs all winter.
Many scientists of the day still agree of Aristotle.
Of course they do. I was brilliant.
Small birds, they said, gather themselves in a great ball, clinging beak to beak, wing to wing, and foot to foot, and lay underwater all winter. Frozen like fishermen even told stories of catching such tangles of birds.
I have never, ever found a tangled ball of birds underwater. And
Some of them believe the birds transform into one kind of earth each winter. And one of them believes the birds travel to the moon each fall and return in the spring. Can you imagine? It took 60 days.
John James had never spent much time in a classroom, and he had failed every exam he had taken in school. He considered himself a naturalist. He studied birds in nature to learn their habits and behaviors.
I will read my books and my pencils and paper. I will even bring my flute too. I will study my capers every day. I will draw them just as they are.
And because he was a boy who loved the out of doors more than the in, that is just what he did.
In a week, the birds were used to him.
They ignored him as if he were an old stump.
Phoebe, Phoebe! They carried bits of moist mud as he drew with his pencil.
They walked in front of me now as he with his pencil favors.
They gathered straight feathers from the banks of the creek as he played the songs on his flute.
Phoebe, Phoebe!
Spring slipped into summer. Summer sighed and became fall.
I watched his two bugs in the sleep patch. I watched his young flute.
He began to feel a part of the small family.
When the days grew shorter and the autumn air began to bite, John James knew the birds would leave soon. Will they come back in the spring?
The question was terribly important to the boy who was far from his family.
In bed that night, John James made up a plan that the next day he would hold a baby bird.
He had read of medieval kings who tied bands on the legs of prize falcons.
Why not band a wild bird to find out where it goes? It has never been done, but I'll give it a try. He pulled a string from his pocket and tied it loosely around a baby bird's leg. The bird pecked it off.
The next day he tied another string to the bird's leg, and again the bird pecked it off. Finally, John James walked 5 miles to the nearest village and bought some thread woven of fine strand silk. This thread was soft and strong. He tied a piece of it loosely to one leg of each baby bird.
My birds have gone!
All around John James loved the museum, his
I hope on my next trip I have 1 or 2 drawings before saving from the fire.
So he was holding out.
And each time John James skated past the empty cave, he thought of 2,000-year-old question.
Where do small birds go? And do they return to the same nest in the spring? The days grew longer.
The ice on the creek cracked and melted.
One morning, John James heard a bird call.
He ran to his cave, ducked his head, and stepped inside.
Female bird did not fly out of the cave like an arrow shot from above. The male bird did not beat his wings above John James' head and snap his beak.
Instead, they ignored John James as if he were an old stump. Watching the birds fly in and out of the cave, John James knew that his friends had returned. We are Lester's babies. Now grown, have they returned too?
Out in the meadow inside they found 2 birds building a nest. One wore a silver thread.
Up the creek under a bridge, he found 2 more nesting birds, and one wore a silver thread around its leg.
Yes! The same birds returned to the same nest egg. Your children nest nearby.
But there was no one to hear him.
I will write to my father and tell him what I have learned in America. When I grow up, I'll find a way to tell the whole world.
He ran back to his house to gather his pencils, paper, and flute. As he ran, he called out,